if a business can't clearly articulate what they do, it doesn't matter how great your logo looks or, your video campaigns. I spend a lot of time in the strategy space helping businesses articulate their capabilities. Just because you know how to use a digital tool doesn't mean that you know how to tell a story or you know how to do graphic design. Everything we do at Gilligan Group is not fluffy. So we need to really understand the business goals and what the business plan is. I didn't really have a plan, I guess, when I started my business. Had always invested a lot of time in networking, and it really is the reason that Gilligan Group is so successful still today. Nothing good in life ever came easy. Knowing that in the hard times, something transformative is happening, and learning how to become resilient is probably one of the hardest and greatest things.
Welcome back to another episode on the Gold Room Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Today, you are bloody lucky. I've got Skye Gilligan in the studio from the Gilligan Group. Skye, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. You enjoying your coffee there?
I feel like we've taken our relationship a long way since Diggers last week.
Well, look, a few days does wonders, doesn't it?
I know. Cheers. Good coffee, by the way.
Great coffee, great coffee. So, look, we start every episode off with Life in the Times. Do you have a favourite episode that you've seen?
Yes.
Go.
As I mentioned to you, am always very short on time. So if I'm listening to a podcast, it's usually when I'm doing my makeup, racing around doing other things or walking my dog. So last week I took the opportunity to see what I was getting myself into, and I always look for leadership chat. So I really benefited from hearing the stories of best advice from some of your top leaders on the show. Very inspiring. So
Yeah,
that
awesome.
was a great episode.
Yeah, I really like that one
Yeah.
too. And the team did an amazing job of chopping that up, the reels that they put together. Pretty impressive.
The only 5 people you've ever interviewed?
No, certainly we've interviewed a hell of a lot more than that.
So I've heard.
So Life in the Times, take us back to your early years. Perth girl?
I'm a Perth girl from the hills.
Awesome.
I like to brag that you can take a girl out of the hills, but you can't take the hills out of a girl.
I've heard that.
Yep. Some of my older friends would tell me I'm a bit of a bogan at heart. Grew up in Maida Vale, which is at the base of Kalamunda. Went to school at Forestfield High. I think they had to change the name of the school. It's definitely a resilience building school. But yeah, left there in year 10, went to Swan Christian College in the Swan Valley, and used to catch the bus there. Bit of a journey from Maida Vale, and grew up on a 4-acre property, which was really exciting as a kid. I look at 4 acres now and I think, wow, that's not very big, but as a small child, it felt like a forest.
Do you have siblings?
I have a brother, who's 6 years younger than I.
Yep.
I feel like I had a lot of time without him at the start with just me and Mum. So Mum and I were, very close in those early years, and my dad worked away a lot. So
You were saying long rosters. What do you remember? What they were?
Yeah, so Dad would have been what you'd call early dido. He was working for Department of Land, and he was a surveyor mapping all the pastoral lands of WA. Mum and I would spend some of those early years going away in the caravan. Dad would, prepare a convoy of Land Cruisers at our property in Maida Vale. He'd be gone for 6 to 8 weeks at a time, and I know he'd write Mum letters, but, he'd have to wait to find a phone box to call. And I do recall Mum throwing a couple of rocks at his car as he'd leave us for some of those trips. So, yeah, I guess it was pretty different.
Rocks.
Yeah, love rocks.
Yeah.
But I do have really fond memories of, being out in the bush, particularly places like Coolgardie, Esperance, and I know we spent a lot of time at Duke of Orleans Bay Caravan Park, which
That's
it
a
was
good spot.
Really magical.
Yeah.
So I think those early years of, travel really ingrained nature into me, so much so that, I have been lucky to travel Europe and those, posh places, I suppose, but if you gave me the option to go away in a vehicle now into the bush with my boys, that'd be, first choice right now.
Yeah. Do you have a favourite part of Western Australia?
Oh, I definitely love down south. I think for the moment, just out of convenience, it's usually Margaret River area. But if I, could book a trip soon, it would definitely be down to Esperance Way.
See, my favourite, we went to Exmouth a few years ago.
Amazing.
And it's my favourite. Coral Bay is hands down.
Actually, I just won the silent auction at the Top Drill charity event last Sunday, which was 2 nights at Coral Bay.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
So you fly into, is it Learmonth? I think Learmonth Airport. Fly into Learmonth.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
And then...
I actually just ordered a new Prado, so hoping to take the drive.
Booming. We're going to get into the business, but far out. That's nice.
Yeah.
How did you find your way into mining?
Well, I think it was by accident. I just got back from London and I took a job at EY, Ernst & Young, and I found myself as marketing manager for tax. Don't fall asleep. The story gets better.
All right.
Oil and gas was booming. This is back in 2006. And I moved into head of oil and gas marketing, which then moved into an expanded role as head of mining and oil and gas for Oceania.
Wow.
I did that for 5 years. That was an amazing networking ground and training ground for business. And then I moved into an ASX-listed explorer, which was Globe Metals and Mining. And that was my sort of foray into the African mining network that I have today.
And they're still around?
They're still around, yeah.
How are they going?
I don't really follow them, to be honest. But
No shares in the company?
No shares in the company,
right.
Yep.
Speaks volumes.
Cheeky question.
I like to throw in a few of those here and there.
I'm probably not qualified to comment on that one.
All right.
But that was honestly one of the best experiences I've ever had in my career, which was getting to travel to Malawi and Mozambique into really remote villages, 10 hours driving, and also the social responsibility side was, a really rewarding part of my life that I never thought I'd get to experience. It sounds cliche, but going and seeing kids that don't have parents out of school and finding out that, 300 kids at the school are orphans, don't have pens, don't have paper.
So what did the company do about it?
Actually, one of the best parts of my job that I got to experience was taking over a clinic that had been built by the company. And I think in my first week of employment, the CEO said, could you organise a shipment of medicine to go to this clinic? Amazing. And I was like, okay. So that led to me doing a health study with the Global Health Alliance. I met this amazing guy who travelled with me to Malawi on pro bono, and we studied the health system around the project operations, and we worked with the Department of Health in Malawi to build out the things that the clinic was lacking to reach certain standards, which didn't end up necessarily just being medicine, but, certain building standards and I guess certain requirements that it needed to attract a health worker of that level to that region.
We're talking like expat doctors and nurses?
No, so I think one of the biggest challenges in the region in Malawi was attracting qualified people back to the villages. So, if someone was, I guess, privileged enough to be able to get a qualification as a nurse, they'd, typically not want to go back. There's no petrol, electricity, they'd have to ride a bike, all of those kind of things. So
it'd be hard to get them back after they'd experienced a different life, right?
So one of the things we did, for example, which sounds so simple, is organising a bicycle for the local nurse.
She was stoked?
Yeah, I think it was a guy actually.
Okay. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't do that. I do it all the time. I get pulled up on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mozambique, Malawi, and then back to Australia?
Yeah, so actually I was based in Perth, West Perth the whole time.
Okay.
And
how long were your stints away?
I think around a month at a time.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
she's at 24-hour flight, 24 hours to get there.
Yeah.
So you're not doing a bloody 8 days on, 6 days off roster in Africa, are you?
It's a big journey, obviously, visas, a lot of injections I remember I had to have. Probably one of the best trips I did was being able to drive between the border of Malawi and Mozambique and going up this amazing mountain along the way, which was called Kuchawe, and finding an English riding school up there actually and getting to go for a horse ride. That was
that's cool.
Pretty amazing. But yeah.
Did you see like army type characters? You know, do people going around? I always hear stories of, you know, like there were AK-47s security with guns at the gates to the site.
Yeah,
what were they mining?
I actually did in the future. Yeah. So in 2016, I went to Burkina Faso with Sarama Resources, who was one of my clients at the time. We actually did a charity project together as well as work. So we had
still a carryover bloody.
I better have some more coffee. Sorry.
Carryover diggers and dealers.
Not at all. I was extremely well behaved at diggers. Yep, early nights every night.
I said that the other day. Same.
Much easier than parenting, to be honest. Yeah, more sleep. Yeah. So the time I went to Burkina Faso, there had been a lot of terrorism, and both the French embassy and the Australian embassy were saying not to travel to Burkina. But the CEO and I had a good chat. He's a local West Aussie guy too, and he said, look, I would take my wife here. They'd been operating there for 8 years at the time. And I spoke to another local French woman who worked there, and I did feel really safe while I was there, but we had to drive for 10 hours to the project site from Ouagadougou, and we did go through multiple checkpoints, and there was, you know, an armed guard, and you heard stories about fake armed guards. I guess I was lucky and everything went fine. We did use local drivers as well, which might have helped. Probably one of the weirdest things was, you know, going to the loo on the side of the road with a client and hoping that no one walked out of the bushes, because when you're in Africa,
it's bonding, right?
There's always someone walking out of the bush. Yep.
Okay. So, Skye, tell me about, so what minerals were they mining?
So when I worked with Globe Metals, we had a rare earths project and a niobium project. Okay. And having left Ernst & Young, I had no idea what those critical metals were when I left. So that was an amazing training ground. I was very lucky to work with a small, intimate team in West Perth. The geologist was very, I guess, welcoming, and the metallurgists, you know, they would spend a lot of time explaining to me you know, what the drilling programs were achieving, what the geological site was like, and I learned a lot about writing ASX announcements, which was my role.
Awesome.
And
helps
also
you out today.
It was amazing training, yeah. And you know, today Gilligan Group obviously writes ASX announcements for a lot of listed companies, and I think having that actual on-site background combined with, you know, working closely with the geo teams was, very lucky.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Is in 2012 you backed yourself to start Gilligan Group. What brought that on? At what point were you like, you know what, I've got I've had some great experience. I've worked with some great teams. What can I bring to the industry? Yeah.
I didn't really have a plan, I guess, when I started my business, but I had always invested a lot of time in networking, and, you know, it really is the reason that Gilligan Group is so successful still today, because we still invest a lot of time in networking. I think, you know, just having coffees with people that you know, having really close bonds with people. I was also lucky enough to go to Africa Down Under at the time and present on the clinic story that I had been working on. And through that process, you know, Sarama became one of my first clients officially. Bill Turner actually is a founder of AMEG, an amazing gentleman, and he really encouraged me to go for it and made some of those initial introductions. And
we've had AMEG on the show.
Yeah, they're a pretty good organisation.
They absolutely are.
Yeah, we've worked with AMEG since 2014, but I was also lucky enough to be an AMEG member prior to that, so I really understood how they worked.
And I suppose that time in Africa, you've got some knowledge on it.
Yeah, I honestly understand what it's like to operate on the continent, and I'm also very passionate about it because I think as Australian mining businesses, we have very high standards when it comes to, not just safety, but how we treat other communities and people in general. So, I genuinely think that whether the company's in exploration or production, I would, put my hand on heart and say that the leadership team wants to see those communities advance and do well. And that is one thing that AMEG does actually is promote through the Africa Awards the good work that Australian businesses are doing on the continent.
Even what we do here with West African Resources.
Yes.
A little tip to them because took Digger of the Year award.
I know, that was, amazing to be at Diggers and see an Australian African producer out there taking the top dog award.
Absolutely.
But imagine, working somewhere where it might not be safe. There's no electricity. There's no running water.
Clean running water. That's the ticket.
Yeah, and there's literally people everywhere. That's all they know, and they're quite happy living as they are in the communities they've grown up in. And then, these Western businesses are coming in, and I guess I got to experience firsthand, community meetings where people had walked for maybe 2 or 3 days to come and hear what was happening and, request a job, because there's really no opportunity in a lot of those villages for the people to advance their lives. So I think when a business moves into Africa, they do take on a lot of responsibility and a lot of challenges, and it can be many years before that company even sees an ounce of revenue.
I speak to a couple of mining companies here and there, and they're all saying the same thing, and I'm sure you've heard it yourself. What can we do to improve our story, right? And that's your role, investment relations, right? So what are you guys doing? What do you think should be done? What can be done better?
I think when we start working with a business, there's a bit of interrogation to go on, and a lot of that initially is really understanding the company's commercial objectives. Everything we do at Gilligan Group is not fluffy. So we need to really understand the business goals and what the business plan is, whether there's shareholders involved or whether it's private. I think the businesses that do invest time as a leadership team, aligning themselves on the story, are the successful ones. Obviously, there's advantages. Like if you're a proven leadership team, then people are going to naturally follow you. Or if you've got a piece of ground that is really popular or in a known mineralised area, then, you're going to have that advantage. But the businesses that do spend time crafting the narrative around, the project, the location, the mineralisation, what's the end goal, that's really going to, I guess, create greater trust with the shareholders, the communities and government involved.
That's amazing. So I've got a question here which... and you and I chatted about this before, social media, and it has completely changed investor relations, hasn't it? Some companies are like, no, we're not getting involved with that. Other companies are saying we've got to go through all of them. And then there's the AI slop.
Yes.
We'll talk about that.
We love that.
Yeah. So what do you think? What are you guys doing?
Oh, social media.
Social media or no social media? Social media, right? Surely.
Absolutely, social media.
Absolutely.
And
not just LinkedIn.
Well, I think you have to assess what your market is. I love LinkedIn. I think for a company, it's an absolute must. All of our clients are B2B, so it's the best place to talk to each other. I don't know if Twitter's as popular as it used to be, but it was the place for fast news, short snippets, etc.
Yep.
Personally, I'm not really looking at it anymore. But I, maybe not the best gauge.
Is there a reason why? Why not? Also,
I think
you're showing your
things have got more visual as well, right? So if you did have a big workforce, for example, then you'd probably, look at Facebook or Instagram to make things more visual from a cultural perspective. But, if you've got a business message to share, then I think LinkedIn's the place to go. I think we're in a really interesting time with AI. You can't ignore it. Some companies are, maybe cancelling their communications agencies and deciding they can do it alone, and maybe paying for subscriptions. There are some great technologies out there, but I think you've also got to have the great marketing foundations. Like, just because you know how to use a digital tool doesn't mean that you know how to tell a story or you know how to do graphic design. I was telling you earlier, our team's got a bit of an AI Slop channel going in the office at the moment where we share screenshots of terrible examples. Maybe it's just to make ourselves feel better, but...
Have I made the cut? I've put some bloody ripper.
I don't want to embarrass you in public, but
listen,
I did give you a few tips behind the scenes.
Okay, thank you. Embarrassed in public, I mean, shit, that's if I'm good at anything, it's that. You've worked in investor relations for such a long time. What's some key takeaway points that you really want to get across to prospective mining companies? What drives Gilligan Group to be one of the best in the industry?
Thank you. We are the best, if I do say so. Look, we started as a content agency, and today we do everything from, design and digital and strategy, and I still can't get away from content. Like, if a business can't clearly articulate what they do, it doesn't matter how great your logo looks or, your video campaigns. I spend a lot of time in the strategy space helping businesses articulate their capabilities, their solution matrix, really deeply analyse their target audience. And that might sound fluffy, but, we're dealing with OEMs manufacturing critical components in underground machines. We're dealing with tailings storage facility engineering. We're dealing with water on a plant. We're dealing with, all kinds of mechanised rail. These are not fluffy topics. And often if a company hasn't aligned their marketing strategy to their business objectives, then you're just going to end up with fluffy marketing approaches. And I think that's where we've really differentiated. We've spent 14 years building a team who love delving into these topics and who are used to technical topics. They can write about it. They can design brands for it. A brand in a technical space, in a heavy industrial space, has to look good on a boardroom report, but it also has to look really sexy on a piece of heavy equipment in the red dust. And that takes a certain level of designer to understand that, and that's what we've spent our time doing.
I did notice, so I spent a heap of time at Diggers. I spent a heap of time in the auditorium listening to some...
That would have been fun.
It was. Look, I really enjoyed it. There was one morning where the day before I'd said to Darren Stralo, mate, listen, last year I thought you could have bloody spiced it up a bit. I thought you could have, a bit more oomph. And he was like, mate, I was sick last year. I was like, well, that's fine, but it's, you're there in front of the investors. I want to see you. I said, I'll be there for crack of dawn. I'll be there to watch you tomorrow morning. And for one reason or another, I didn't make Stralo's presentation. I did tell him that afternoon because he came and saw me. It's just like, what did you think? I was just like, mate, I'm going to have to watch it on the bloody YouTube because I missed it, unfortunately. But I'm going to be there for Alex Rivera's and Wayne Bramall's. I came in. I apologise. I missed yours. Some of those presentations looked really good. Some of those presentations didn't look very good. They had much of the muchness, right? But you could just see where the disclaimer first and foremost. But then after that, the slides... Some of the slides just didn't look good. And I think, well, but the presenter was fantastic. And I just thought they both have to, and remember, I'm a simpleton. I'm not good at much
But men are visual, right? And
Absolutely.
really everyone's visual. So the brand architecture plays a role in the
Absolutely.
investor template, but then it's all about how is the content structured after that. So we do a lot of work with M&A firms, helping them with their clients structure their bank decks or their investor decks. But sometimes, we get a job that's tough because the brand really sucks. And, most of the time we get the opportunity to fix that first, and sometimes we don't. So
how long does it take? How long does it take to switch up a really not great company, whether it be, changing the logo or whether it be let's say a full reset, a total reset. Someone comes to you and says, hey, look, Skye, help us out here. This is what we've currently got. What can you do? How would you do it?
You've asked me a couple of questions there, but if we were talking about an M&A deck, for example, so something to go on a roadshow, I think a good 30 hours would be sufficient. That would enable us to fix up the template, get the content looking schmick, do any diagrams and project maps that need to accompany the information. If it was a brand, we like to have 4 weeks just because, it's not a full-time 4 weeks, but it's allowing the designer to have that creative time to really think about different concepts. When we're working with an M&A firm, though, it's more often than not we'll get a deck and they, give it to us on a Monday and then they say they need it on Wednesday. So we do amazing things at Gilligan Group. We will burn the midnight oil and we will work for you to make it happen quickly.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Is there any companies that you can shout out that you're currently working with, or is this like spy type shit where you got to keep it to yourself?
It's not secret. I mean, there's a couple of IPOs that we would have with companies like Argonaut, for example, that I wouldn't mention. But at the moment, we've got a range of big and small listed and private business. So
Valiant Gold?
Not Valiant, yeah.
Maritana?
No.
Okay, so you name some because I look at what Brendo and the team are doing. I've actually got one of their really cool pins.
Yep.
Relatively cool logo. If it's upside down, it's V for Valiant. If it's the other way, it is Starship Enterprise. Someone pointed that out to me.
That's cool.
It was
I
really
actually
cool.
thought Golden Horse marketing was awesome at Diggers. And
listen, Golden Horse is, while they've got a great team there, Dean is the pun master.
Yeah.
And
well, my pun impressed Dean.
Did it? What was it? He did ask me when I went by, and I was just like, mate, I want one of these wines. And he was.
It was a Pony Club pun, and it just rolled off the tongue naturally. And I was lucky to walk away with a bottle of Chardonnay.
Chardonnay, so
Yes.
did I.
I'm looking forward to opening that. I couldn't handle it after last week, so I just need a couple of days break.
Absolutely not. I am actually going to not drink it. It's not going to age well. I'm going to.
That's rude.
No, the company will age well, but that wine, it's a Chardonnay. I don't like it.
Oh.
They say, I'm not a Chardonnay guy. Actually, I don't really like wine in general. Red's fine, but a Sauvignon Blanc or an SSB or a Chardonnay's too dry and.
I think a Chardonnay's for a mature palate.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm not mature in any aspect.
We've
of
already worked out I'm older than you, so.
Well, I didn't think so. I thought you were about 10 years younger than me. But what do you do?
Yeah.
So.
We were talking about shout-outs.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. You're the one dialing me, and usually I'm the one who's got to dial in the bloody guest. Hey, listen, get back on track. So who else gets a shout-out from Diggers, do you think?
Well, we also work with, I guess what's interesting is seeing...
You didn't actually name a company. You didn't name a company that you're working with. Go.
Okay. Company we're working with at the moment is Duratec.
Okay.
So they do have a Kalgoorlie location.
They do. Concrete repair.
But
they do a lot.
They actually do a lot more than that, yeah.
Okay. The first company I worked for in Australia when I first arrived in 2013. Duratec.
Wow. How'd that go?
It was fucking hard.
I'm going to ask them about you.
Oh, there was a guy called Jerry. There was an Irish bloke. Probably the company's pumped with Irish blokes. There's a guy called Jerry bloody something. And so I was working at KCGM on their concrete repair team at the Metso at their primary crusher. I was working 14-hour days.
Would have been rough.
It was rough.
How was the vibrations?
It was not good. I think it's like there was a T1000. It sounds like a Terminator, but it was just a bloody drill. It was just a bloody concrete jackhammer. It was just a jackhammer. And there was some really cool Maori guys I was working with, Willie Riwi and his dad August Riwi, and they were the hardest working men still to this day that I've ever met. But those
it's pretty rough work out there.
It's not great.
I think anyone who lives in Cal is pretty tough.
Now I've seen some that aren't that tough. So give me, what about a mining company that you? So Duratec, while they're a mining contractor.
Probably one of the most exciting projects I'd say around at the moment is BCI's mineral salt project.
Cool. Yep.
Yeah, they're about to put first salt on ship soon.
Wow.
And I think that's, a huge food security and great economic value project for Australia, as not even just Western Australia.
Yep.
And they're also operating some of their own port infrastructure too, which is, I think, going to be really exciting for their future.
ESG and social license to operate, huge in the industry. It was on so many investor decks. Every presentation has it. Has it become a buzzword? Do companies believe in it, or is it just something else that they put together? What do you think? Like your time in Africa, you were actually boots on the ground. You saw it. You actually lived it. You worked it. What do you reckon?
If I was focused on Africa, I definitely think companies believe in it. I think you can't avoid it anyway. And if you actually had boots on the ground, you would be just compelled to make a difference because you're literally having to clear people out of the way in some instances, or provide medicine or fresh running water. As I said earlier, I think Australian companies in Africa in general are making a big indent on the continent in that regard. But that can also start really small. If you're an explorer and you don't have any revenue, I think doing a private public partnership, for example, can get you greater results than trying to do things alone. So, when I was working there, working with, a health agency or a health alliance to try and make a bigger impact in the areas that you don't have resources, rather than just doing the usual water well drilling or, dump of materials. So I do think CSR is absolutely necessary. ESG, I guess that broadened the term a little bit for me, from social license all the way through to compliance and safety and environment and other things. And obviously we've seen a lot of different legislation come in around the world in that regard. I think it maybe isn't dying off, but I think the buzz around it or the hype around it could be closing down a bit.
Who was the hype for?
Well,
is it for investors, to show investors that we're doing the right thing? Greta Thunberg.
I definitely think there's investors that expect it, and then I think there'd be the share of investors that just want to make a profit at any cost. I think what I heard is the banks expect it, and so because compliance,
I heard that too.
Compliance has got so heavy everywhere.
Where is the bank getting it from? Who's saying it to the bank? Who's saying to the bank? Is it?
Well, I think they have to sign off that they've got all of the relevant policies as well. So if they're backing companies that aren't ethically operating or doing the right thing by communities, environment, then
very important.
They're going to get the backlash as well.
Yeah,
so
very important. I think so. There's the traditional owners here. Just if we were to talk about Australia. Some traditional owners are working so well and so closely with, and it's one of those things where we don't mention names, but there's, I know some traditional owners that are just absolutely out there putting their hand up saying, hey, listen, work with us. We want to work with you, rather than checkmate, you want to operate here. We're going to make it difficult. Pay us, which is not good for anyone, because if there's no mining, there's no lifeblood of the industry. I just think that it comes back to doing the right thing, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure what your question is there, but there's definitely, a lot of joint ventures going on. I think maybe some of the regulations around that are questionable. Like there's a lot of JV companies that seem to be popping up for the sake of it.
Yeah. It's just that the question is that social license to operate,
I think there's other businesses that are doing amazing things with Aboriginal corporations and doing them really genuinely. Had a great meeting the other week with Yalla McGrady, who's just joined Mater First. I'm really excited to see what results there. He's an amazing businessman, that's been in the corporate space and, out in the industrial spaces in the Pilbara as well.
I have seen him. I haven't met him. I've seen him online. I've seen him on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Would be fantastic to get him on the show.
You definitely should.
Yeah,
yep.
I'll try.
Yeah, and I think the other challenge is that companies operating, on country, trying to engage with local communities, there's some really small things that the communities want as well. Like we do a lot of work with Pilbara Rail, formerly Pilbara Rail Maintenance, now PRM. They've done huge things like civil works for the community, but they've also done smaller things like taking plant pots out to the women in the community because that's what they asked for. So I think engagement has to be asked. It can't just be assumed. And I think
it comes back all the time to communication.
Yes, communication.
Sitting down, and that's what you know.
Yes.
It's all communication.
But sometimes communication gets so complicated. I don't know why.
How? Why? It shouldn't. Because
maybe it's fear-driven. Maybe
fear from what?
Maybe people don't ask the questions, or maybe assumptions are made, or maybe they just don't communicate at all, and that's obviously one of the worst things. But I also think that organisations should look at the bigger picture as well. For example, we've done a lot of work with Eon Aboriginal Foundation, who actually build market gardens in remote community schools and teach children about what fresh vegetables look like, how to grow them, and then how to cook them. And then that extends further into the community in terms of community gardens and community employment and, taking food home to share. And even for me, understanding that in Australia, we're still struggling with third world diseases that have been eradicated in other countries. Like, it's absolutely unacceptable. And food shortages not just coming down to, lack of roads or floods. It's like, even if there were foods in the fridge in Karratha, would someone from the community understand what that vegetable was and how to cook it and what to do with it? So that's where these foundations come in as a very valuable
I didn't even know that
piece.
they existed.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But the challenge for them, for example, is they're a national organisation that's been around 20 years, but they might not necessarily be in the vicinity of a mining company's project, so they don't always get looked at. But there's communities on the waiting list, even in Kalgoorlie.
How many, it can be difficult for some companies to get in and speak to the right person at, at that commercial level. So you got I know a large number of Indigenous businesses, and the same thing I keep hearing is, Josh, how do we get in and speak to them? And I always just say, look, I'm really sorry, but I don't know. I just think, you got to keep knocking on those doors. The more people that you don't send an email to and pick up the phone or drive to, not that you're driving out to a mine site, but certainly some friends of mine in Port Hedland in the Pilbara, they are, some of them are struggling to get Aboriginal businesses, struggling to meet and get in to speak to the right people.
And maybe you're right. Maybe that's where people like you and I, who have big networks, can play a role making introductions. Hence calling out Eon, for example. They don't have connections into the mining industry, yet they're operating in all of these remote places. And I think after 14 years in the industry, or maybe 25 for someone like me, you do build this amazing network, and it can be really hard to get into those bigger companies especially, but there's really good people in those companies. So networking and talking about things that matter.
My shout outs to Mina Group up in the top end of WA.
What do they do?
So they do mining. They do mining supply. They're a small little mining supply company, and they've had a couple of wins. But I think the people in that business genuinely want to support other mobs in the community, and they're supporting their own. They're supporting their own group, but they all say the same thing. Josh, how do we get in there? And I just keep saying the same thing. Just keep being you. Yeah. Keep being you, and because they genuinely want they want to do the right thing, and they want to do. There's some businesses out there that are saying, "Oh, with the IPP, you have to deal with us," and then there's other Indigenous procurement policy, and then there's other businesses that are just want to be known as just another business but the difference is they want to support so many other people, and that's what I really like about them.
Yeah, and I think if you are looking to give back, it doesn't always have to be financial. If you're a small business, like us, for example, we give back regularly with mentorship or in-kind, like digital work or brand work. You use your skill set, whether that's, connections or a technical ability, to give back to those that need it.
This is my give back. This is my give back to the industry, so I don't, there's no wages, there's no ROI, there's no, this is just my time to give back.
Super valuable.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Just to be able to tell a story, to be able to tell a story, not just with audio or written, but visual. Yeah. I think it's important. And there hasn't been anyone that I don't think that there's been anyone that I've turned down. I've said, hey, listen, at some point, or tell me how I can elevate your story. Tell me, because it's their story. It's so important to be able to keep telling stories.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's why we exist, to tell business stories, which is, it's a privilege to tell someone's story.
I think so. Yeah. I think so. Skye, you obviously come across to definitely myself and anyone that's probably ever met you, as someone who's so passionate about supporting others. You support businesses through Gilligan Group. You support community. You've supported communities over the years in Africa. You support your family. What's a key takeaway of your life to date that you think this is why I'm here doing what I do?
Mm-hmm. For me, relationships are the foundation of everything I do, from my personal life to my business life. You're right, I have spent a lot of time investing in business networks, finding things that drive me and make me passionate. I feel very privileged to be led into business owners' lives and be told in great detail how they have built their success. I think all of that has taken a lot of my time as well, and I've always been super ambitious, but the most valuable thing that I've got out of my life is being able to be a mum.
Beautiful.
And I had my first son when I was 39, so I'm an old mum. You can guess how old I am. He's 8 now.
Wow. I wouldn't have picked it.
I wanted to have more kids, and, life always takes twists and turns, and I was gifted 2 more boys through my partner's relationship in 2024. And now I guess where I get a lot of my normality and sanity, and sometimes insanity, is through the integration of our family and having 3 boys, being the only female in a house full of men and even a male dog. I think when you're an entrepreneur, you can't stop thinking about work, and you can't stop trying to do things better, and also, wondering when you're going to be a success and when is enough going to be enough. But when you're at home, it's just the simple things that make you feel grounded. You know, it could be taking your son to footy and standing on the sidelines and just feeling so fucking proud watching your kid run faster than other kids, or
I know that one.
Kicking a goal, and, you know, going on a family holiday and watching your boys learn how to fish, or, you know, play with the dog in the sand. Like, they're the defining moments for me. I have lived a very full life before I had a family, and done all my travel, and I'm sure there's more to go, but being able to now, you know, raise 3 boys, it's a privilege to watch a human grow and to have a guiding hand in that.
Absolutely.
And you hope to God that you don't get it wrong.
But we're all winging it.
We're all winging it. There's
no guidebook. People are saying it's all personality dependent.
That's right. Yeah.
Can be a tough slog, but it's also a beautiful learning curve, isn't it?
It's a beautiful, messy learning curve. Yeah. And no one teaches you the way, just the same as no one teaches you how to run a business. You've just got to work it out, but try and be a good person.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, Skye, thank you very much for joining me. I do have one last question, and I usually ask the question, which is, what's the best advice you've been given, right? And actually at Diggers, I met with this very entrepreneurial, very smart young woman who's actually coming on the podcast, and she said, Josh, I don't think I'm the right person. And I was just like, well, why not? And she gave me this raft of bloody reasons. And then I said to her, yes, you say all that nonsense, but if you could go back with all this thought process that you now have, if you could go back and speak to a 6 or 8-year-old younger version of yourself, and even if you only got to reach one person, but it changed that one 6 to 10-year-old girl's life, what would you tell that person? So, and then her eyes filled up with tears, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm making more people cry. It's ridiculous. But anyway, so my question is, the best advice that you've ever heard, and something that you'd want that younger woman to know.
I think something that I've learned.
Goosebumps even for myself saying that. Whoa.
So deep.
It is.
Such a deep man. The thing that I like to remind myself, and I often say it to my team or even my son, is nothing good in life ever came easy. And I think, whether you're in business or whether you're starting your career or you're a teenager and you're trying to figure life out, knowing that in the hard times something transformative is happening, and learning how to become resilient is probably one of the hardest and greatest things. So, I've never been given anything on a platter, and having to find my own way and make my own success, have my family late, all of those things was all resilience building. If someone had told me at the beginning, like, you won't have a baby till you're 39, you won't meet the love of your life till you're 45, like,
there's bloody hope for me yet.
You'll be running a business, but, in year 14, you're still going to be working things out.
I think in year 24, you will still be working things out.
I think, having resilience. And I listen to Cameron Schwab a lot. He was the CEO of 3 football clubs, if you haven't heard of him. He always says the pressure of the role is the privilege of the role, and that always helps me get through in the hard times.
Amazing.
And just reminding myself that when it feels hard, something good's happening. I've just got to get past that point, and then I'll be in the next phase.
That's amazing. Skye, look, that's amazing. This has been a really awesome chat. Thank you very much for your time.
Having me.
Not a problem. Hope you enjoyed your coffee.
Loved the coffee.
Excellent. Yeah. That's what we do here. Look, it was a pleasure meeting you at Diggers, and I'm sure we will have many a conversation after this.
I hope so.
For
Thank
sure.
you.
Not a problem. Thank you very much for tuning into another episode on the Gold Room podcast. This was a ripper. One thing that really stood out for me at Diggers and Dealers this year was the amount of astounding women, Skye being one of them. Obviously, we've got so many more women in mining than ever before, which is only going to increase. I think it's bloody fantastic. So if you're a young woman or an older woman who wants to get into the mining industry, please, by all accounts, contact someone. Just look at LinkedIn and get involved, because the mining industry is amazing. And the more amazing people we have in it, it's just so much more powerful. Thank you.